Episode 1 of Season 2 kicks off right where Season 1 left off, with Johnny and Kreese in the dojo. Johnny thought Kreese was dead, and Kreese says, yeah, a lot of people did. But Kreese starts to take credit for Miguel winning the championship, telling Johnny, you taught him well, but you taught him well because you learned from me. And that really upsets Johnny to the point where he takes a swing at Kreese, but Kreese ends up putting him on the mat. And Kreese looks down at him saying, I taught you everything you know. But Johnny says, yeah, you didn't teach me everything, and kicks him in the face, knocking his cigar out of his hand and into the trash can. The two end up getting into a really stupid fight with nobody winning, and it eventually ends when the sprinklers from the dojo go on because that trash can lit on fire. After this stupid fight, Johnny goes home and starts to ice his hand when he gets a knock at the door, and it's Miguel's mom, who has made him tres leches to thank him for mentoring her son. Although she does say she is worried about the look that Miguel had in his eyes during a fight, but she chalks it up to his, quote, game face. Johnny reassures her that Miguel's a really good kid and he's not going to allow him to go astray. But then his house phone rings and it's Kreese on the other line, telling him to meet him at a diner the next day. Now, while Johnny and Miguel's mom have their first date, Miguel is out celebrating his victory with Cobra Kai. And Sam, who is at home, sees Aisha's video about them celebrating their victory on Instagram and decides to scroll through Miguel's Instagram looking at the good times that they had, but then ultimately deciding to block him. At the restaurant, though, the table consists of Eli, Moon, Aisha, and Dimitri. And Dimitri makes mention of the championship that they won at Robot Camp, doing an impression of a robot talking to Eli, but Eli is not into that at all, telling him to cut the nerd shit, even though everyone at the table found it funny. One person noticeably absent from this table is Miguel, whose food is getting cold, and that's because Miguel is sitting in a corner by himself, looking for Sam on Instagram and realizing, holy shit, I've been blocked. Eli and Aisha come over to make him feel better about it, mainly Aisha, because Eli gives him terrible advice, but Aisha tells him, don't worry, give her time, she'll come around. Although Miguel feels like he's run out of time and that he's blown his only shot with her. Now, the next day, Johnny heads to that diner to meet up with Kreese, and Kreese starts telling him the backstory about where he's been. He's been off-grid training SEALs, training soldiers, training everybody, but he's come back to lend a helping hand to Cobra Kai because he feels like the kids nowadays are just soft. Johnny tells him that while the world needs Cobra Kai does not need Kreese, and walks off. He then heads off to training that day where a bunch of new kids have arrived after hearing about the championship, wanting to sign up, and Eli has already started to kind of bully him a little bit. But when Johnny shows up, he tells the kids to go away. They're not accepting new students today. Although, come back tomorrow, bring your checkbook, because he wants to ream out his kids. He has Eli and Miguel up front and starts asking them, did you kick your opponent when he was turned away? Did you attack your opponent's weakness? That's a pussy move. He then poses a question to Aisha. You have two cobras in a jungle. One attacks an injured animal, another attacks a tiger. Which one do you want to be? And she obviously says, I want to be the cobra that attacked the tiger because it's a stronger animal. He hammers the point home that they didn't win right, and he tells them no more cheating, no more fighting dirty. From here on out, those are pussy moves, and you don't want to be a pussy. He makes Miguel and Eli give him 50 push-ups while Aisha breaks the class down. But Miguel is upset, and he goes to talk to Johnny about it because he feels like he's being punished for winning the tournament. And it was Johnny who taught them no mercy. It was Johnny who taught them to win at all costs. And what Miguel really can't understand is the fact that Johnny had no problem with them attacking anybody else, so why is he taking pity on Robbie? Johnny doesn't tell him that Robbie is his son, but instead telling him that he was never taught the difference between mercy and honor, and because of it, he paid the price. And if it seems like that he's extra hard on Miguel, it's only because Miguel is the best, and he has the potential to be better than Johnny ever was. After training that day, though, everyone heads out, and to Aisha's surprise, Sam is waiting for her. Sam wants to know if she wants to hang out, but Aisha says, I wish I could, but I can't. We're all getting together and watching this movie called Over the Top. She then sees if Sam wants to come with him, but Sam sees Miguel and says, yeah, I'll take a rain check. Even though Aisha implores her to go, saying that they really should work their differences out. Now, Sam's dad and Robbie have been hard at work getting Miyagi-Do up to par. Fresh coat of paint, getting new boards, the whole nine. Although his wife is concerned that he's not doing this for the right reasons. And he basically admits as much, saying, I can't let Cobra Kai win. Someone has to do something about those bullies. And they still have some stuff they need to do, so they head to the local hardware store where, ironically, Johnny has also headed there. Because Johnny needs to replace mirror glass that was broken during the stupid fight with Kreese. But he overhears Daniel along with Robbie, and he's watching their relationship from afar. But Johnny ends up getting caught when the guy at the hardware store says, yo, Metallica guy. Somehow that's a dead giveaway that it's Johnny. And he sheepishly comes out from behind the one aisle and gives kind of a nod to Daniel and Robbie, although it doesn't seem like anyone's real thrilled to see the other. It gets real awkward when the hardware store guy recognizes Daniel from his car commercials and says that Robbie looks just like Daniel. Johnny then tells him to go take his stuff into the loading dock, and Daniel, sensing that Johnny wants to talk to Robbie, takes his stuff up to the counter to pay for it and leaves the two alone. Johnny asks how Robbie's shoulder's doing, but Robbie is pissed off because he feels like Johnny told Miguel to go after his shoulder even though he didn't. He tells Johnny, I know I'm supposed to forgive you and all, but right now it's a little tough. And Johnny says, so you're just going to go and train with that douchebag? But Robbie gets really pissed off, saying, you don't even know Mr. LaRussa. He's way better of a guy than you'll ever be. And he walks off. And when he gets to the car, Daniel asks how it went, and he says, same as always. He's more concerned with his rivalry with you than he is with me. When Daniel gets home, to his surprise, he finds Sam in the dojo. He starts critiquing what she was doing, but then admits that he's had so much time building the dojo that he hasn't had enough time to talk to her about what happened with Miguel. Although she has no interest in talking to her dad about her boyfriend. But whether she likes it or not, she's going to have that awkward conversation. And Daniel tells her about his first girlfriend, and about how he thought she was the one. And then his second girlfriend, and his third, and his fourth. And the whole message is, sometimes you're obsessed with somebody, but life goes on, and you find somebody else. The conversation, though, then turns to why he's opening up Miyagi-Do, saying that he's going to fight back against Cobra Kai. Take him down. But Sam tells him, I don't want to fight them. They're not my enemy. In fact, most of them I'm friends with. At least they used to be. She then thanks him for trying to help, and then she walks out. And that comment was a lot of food for thought for Daniel. And he needs to refocus, heading into the dojo and practicing a meditation ritual that Mr. Miyagi taught him. And Robbie catches him in that meditation ritual and asks what he was doing, and he fills him in, saying he needed to refocus because he realized he had been doing things all wrong. Ever since the tournament, he had been focused on taking down Cobra Kai, when in reality, they're not his enemy. No one is. They just learn how to do things the wrong way. So it's up to him to teach them a different way, a better way. And that's when Sam asks them, do you have room for one more, because she has agreed to join Miyagi-Do. Now, Johnny is also in his dojo, but he's working hard to fix it from the damage that was done when the sprinklers went off from that stupid fight when Kreese walks in. And Kreese isn't here to fight. He's actually here to make amends, apologizing to Johnny. He tells him that he realized that he was too hard on him. He went overboard. Johnny was his best student, and he had so much potential. And Kreese just couldn't stand seeing him lose. He tells him for years he had regretted the night that he choked out Johnny for winning second place. And when Kreese heard that Johnny was bringing back Cobra Kai, he thought maybe it could be an opportunity for Kreese to redeem himself. He then pulls out a massive trophy from the bag that he was holding, and it's Johnny's second place trophy. He tells him he fixed it, and he leaves it. He then tells him that it might say second place, but in his opinion, Johnny was always the better fighter, and then he walks out. But he doesn't get too far in the parking lot before Johnny comes out and says, hey, wait a minute. In episode 2, Robbie is awoken in the middle of the night by some random guy sneaking into his house. So he does what any normal person would do. He attacks the guy. But then his mom flips on the switch and can't believe that Robbie attacked him, but she hasn't been home in like 2 weeks. So he thought somebody was breaking in. She tells him that this is her new boyfriend and he's taking her to Cabo. And don't worry about the bills, he's going to take care of that. She'll be gone for about a week and a half tops, but Robbie has the whole place to himself. And she acts like this is a positive, but it's not exactly what Robbie wants. Before they leave, though, Robbie does tell the guy, if you hurt her, I'm going to hurt you. And the guy takes it as an empty threat. He's not really scared of Robbie. He then heads off to Miyagi-Do for training, where Sam has also arrived that day. And as she's walking in, she gets a phone call from who she thinks is Aisha, because the phone says Aisha, but in reality, it's Miguel using Aisha's phone because Sam wasn't getting back to him. And it was desperate times call for desperate measures situation, and he just wants to apologize and wants things to go back the way they were. But she gets pissed off with the fact that he used Aisha's phone. And when she walks in and sees Robbie, she says, I can't talk right now, I gotta go. Daniel walks in and starts going through the first lesson. He draws a circle in the sand and has them stand in it, and they're going to practice this defense choreography that's really nothing more than a dance. Although he swears that if they master it, they will be able to protect themselves. The problem is, in order to do it correctly, they have to be in sync, and it's hard to be in sync when you can't see your partner. They both are getting frustrated, and they also feel like this is just stupid. It's a waste of time. And while Daniel's trying to convince him that it's not, he gets a text message from Amanda saying there's a work emergency, head to the dealership ASAP. So he tells him to keep practicing and heads on over, and the work emergency is the fact that 2 of their sales associates were poached by Tom Cole, and they have to sell 10 cars in order to meet their quota by the end of the week. And Daniel's frustrated because he just opened up Miyagi-Do. He doesn't want to abandon the kids for a week while he tries to sell 10 cars. So he vows to sell them that day. And him and Amanda team up, and they go to work on these customers, schmoozing all of them and selling all 10 cars. And at the end of the day, Amanda and Daniel toast and celebrate the fact that they just made quota in a day. She tells Daniel, I forgot how good of a salesman you really were. And Daniel says, well, I wish I was that good of a sensei. Because Mr. Miyagi was such a good teacher and Daniel doesn't feel like he has those same tricks. But Amanda reminds him that Miyagi-Do has been open for 1 day. And if Mr. Miyagi had his tricks, then just come up with your own. You don't have to be Mr. Miyagi, you just have to be Daniel. And that's when, while he's looking in the service center, he sees a tire spinning around and he has an epiphany. Now, over with Cobra Kai, after he got off the phone with Sam, Daniel had to start getting ready for class that day, where Bert, Aisha, and Eli were all razzing the new kids. But right before class, Kreese walks in. And Johnny is a little surprised to see Kreese because he told him to come the next day, but Kreese is going to come on Kreese's time. So Johnny gets everybody in line and tells them this is Mr. Kreese. He'll be observing today. He then has Daniel break them down, and Daniel's doing a good job until the last thing he does is in a playful manner. And all the kids are laughing, and Johnny feels insecure, like he doesn't have order of the dojo in front of Kreese. Johnny kind of yells at Miguel for joking around, but Aisha takes it one step further, making a Cobra Kai joke that, in Johnny's opinion, makes him look really bad in front of Kreese. So he tells him that class is canceled for that day, and they need to show up tomorrow at 5 a.m. If they don't, they're off the team. And the next day when the kids show up, they're all mixing cement, having really no idea what Johnny has in store for them. But Johnny has ordered a cement truck, and when it arrives, he starts to tell them that they've gotten complacent. They won 1 tournament, and all of a sudden, they think they're the bee's knees, but they're not. And just like the cement in that truck, if the truck stops, the cement gets hardened. And right now, they are the cement. They need to make the truck move in order to keep the cement flowing. So he tells them all to get in the cement truck, actually get inside of it, and make it spin. But the kids are really hesitant to do that. They start apologizing to Johnny, telling him that they learned their lesson, and then start complaining about the safety aspect of this whole thing when Kreese jumps in, saying, this man led you to the mountaintop, and now you're questioning him? I mean, look at you guys. I can't believe this pathetic group actually won the All-Valley tournament. I mean, that right there is a minor miracle. And who's responsible for that miracle? Johnny Lawrence, the best student in the history of Cobra Kai, my student. And that's when Eli says, whoa, you were Sensei? And Kreese says, damn right I was. And I've never trained a tougher student in my entire life. And if you know what's good for you, you listen to every single thing Johnny Lawrence has to say. And slowly, some of the kids start getting in the cement truck. And it takes a little bit, but they do end up moving it. And that's a slight minor miracle because Johnny had no idea if this was going to work. But afterwards, he's hosing the kids down and telling them that he's proud of them. And he knows that their parents would be proud of them if they knew what they did here today. But he tells the kids not to tell their parents. The final message he gives them is if they just keep pushing forward, they can go to new heights that they never even dreamed of. Now, the experimental training method that Daniel has come up with has to do with the floating wood in the pond. But Robbie's had a rough morning because the previous night, as he was looking for food in his house, the power went out because the bill wasn't paid. So he's in a mood when he arrives at Miyagi-Do, and when Sam asks him a simple question on the choreography, he kind of gives her a lot of attitude. They then walk out and see Daniel taking the bonsai off of the wood, and he tells them to get on it. Because on the ground, they can't sense what their partner's doing. But if they're bouncing in the water, it's going to help them sense what the other's doing. And at first, they fall in the water quite a bit. But eventually, they do end up getting it. After the training session, Robbie apologizes to Sam for how he acted in the morning, telling her, I'm just going through a lot at home. My mom left with some guy. The power's out, but hey, I'll see you tomorrow. And then he leaves. But Sam ends up going to Daniel, telling him about Robbie's home situation. And when Daniel finds out about this, he goes and picks Robbie up and brings him back to the LaRussos. He's talking to Amanda about keeping Robbie there. And Amanda's fine with him staying a few days, but she tells Daniel if he's going to stay there longer than that, we have to talk to his parents. And Daniel's tried to get in touch with Robbie's mom, but Amanda says he does have a father. So Daniel heads over to talk to Johnny at the dojo, and Johnny's doing paperwork as Kreese tells him that what he did today took balls, putting his students in danger like that. It worked, and it takes guts. Johnny then thanks him for giving the kids a sort of kick in the ass to get into that cement truck. And then Kreese asks Johnny if he wants to go get a beer, and Johnny can run him through the next day's lessons. And Johnny says, so you're coming tomorrow? And Kreese says, well, if it's okay. And Johnny doesn't put up a fight against his former sensei. The two do go to that mini-mart and grab a beer while insulting the mini-mart attendant. But when they come out, there's Daniel LaRusso, shocked. Because he, just like Johnny, thought Kreese was dead. He asked Johnny, was this all a part of your little plan? But Johnny says, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And Daniel starts to walk away, saying, you know what? I've seen plenty. But Kreese steps in saying, well, if you want to see more, this guy right here is going to take Cobra Kai to new heights. And he puts his hand on Johnny's shoulder, but Johnny kind of shrugs it away, walking up to Daniel and asking, what do you want? But Daniel just says, I got my answer. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, you're in for a rude awakening. Now, back at Johnny's house, Johnny wasn't there, so when Miguel went to drop off food that his mom made for Johnny, he had to use the spare key to let himself in. He puts the food in the refrigerator, but when he looks up, he sees a picture of a boy from 2010 playing soccer. And somehow, Miguel knows that this is Robbie Keane, even though the photo doesn't say Robbie Keane anywhere on it. Anyway, now he's wondering why his coach has a random picture of Robbie Keane from 10 years ago. At the behest of his students, Johnny has bought a computer in episode 3, and he is not very tech savvy. It takes him a while just to figure out how to turn the thing on. But after connecting to Wi-Fi, he realizes the power of the internet. He does what every guy does. Starts looking up porn. And then he does the second thing every guy does. Goes to YouTube and starts looking up videos. And he stumbles across a karate video, but right before it plays, an advertisement plays for Miyagi-Do Karate. And it really pisses off Johnny. And he's not the only person. This ad is kind of the talk of the area. Amanda's giving the cold shoulder to Daniel because Daniel spent a large portion of their advertising money on this commercial. And while he's apologetic, his thing is we have Valley Fest coming up, and that drives a lot of traffic to the dealership. And yes, you're right. I should have consulted you, and I'll do it next time. But with Kreese back in town, I have to step my game up. I mean, this is a guy who faked his death twice. I can't let this guy sink his claws into the valley. But then Daniel gets welcomed into 2020 because Anish comes in and tells him that he loves the advertising, but he doesn't think that it's whitewashing. Since it's 2020 and people need to get offended about everything on the internet, Daniel, dressed in a gi with Asian music in the background, has been dubbed as whitewashing, even though Daniel's legit. So it seems like no one's really loving this ad. After work, though, he heads to training where Robbie and Sam are already there, and Robbie thanks Sam for doing what she did, getting him a nice place to stay that actually has power. But right before the lesson kicks off, the advertising apparently worked. 2 new kids show up. And the advertising was for free karate. But Daniel doesn't handle this too well. When the kids show up, he says, "Great, grab a bucket of paint and some paintbrushes. The fence needs to be done." And these kids think it's a scam, that this guy was promoting free karate when in reality, he just wants them to do chores around the house. Even after Robbie tells them it'll all make sense soon, don't worry about it, the kids are pretty pissed off. They have no patience, and they say, let's go check out that karate with a snake on it, i.e. Cobra Kai. Now, over with the Cobra Kai people, Eli, Miguel, and Dimitri get headed to the beach before training. And a couple of girls came over to Dimitri because he had a Cobra Kai towel, and they asked him if he's Cobra Kai, and he went along with it saying he was. And Eli comes over and asks Dimitri, when are you just going to rejoin? But in Dimitri's opinion, this whole pretending to be Cobra Kai and not having to deal with the pain is working out pretty well. Miguel, however, needs to talk to Eli immediately about the whole Robbie situation. He tells Eli that he's pretty sure Robbie is Johnny's son, and after a deep dive on the internet, Eli can confirm, yep, they're related. But their conversation about Robbie in the dojo is interrupted when Aisha sees the advertising for Miyagi-Do Karate. And while she's showing Eli and Miguel, Johnny is showing Kreese. And Kreese feels like this is a declaration of war. Daniel's giving out free karate. How is Cobra Kai supposed to compete with that? They need to respond immediately. And they do so with an advertisement of their own saying, if you want free karate, you're going to get what you pay for. Why learn karate defense when you can learn karate offense? Right after they film the advertisement, though, Eli and Miguel confront Johnny about the Robbie situation. Their feeling is that No Mercy was fine when it wasn't the coach's son. And Johnny's a little taken aback, and he's a little pissed off about the fact that they're even thinking he gave preferential treatment to Robbie. So he punishes them by having them clean mats. But Kreese overheard this conversation, and now he's aware of the fact that Daniel is teaching Johnny's son. And when Johnny leaves the dojo that day, Kreese tells him, you shouldn't be having Daniel LaRusso teach your kid karate. You should be the one to do that. Johnny tries to nip it in the bud, saying it's not going to happen. Kreese then says, well, it's a good thing you have that Mexican kid, and Johnny does correct him by saying he's from Ecuador. Kreese says, yeah, whatever. You better just hope to God that Daniel LaRusso doesn't snatch him from you. And it seems like Johnny hadn't even had that thought. So that night, Johnny takes Miguel to a restaurant and tells him that he never grew up with a father. And his mother was everything to him. And when his mother died, that's around the time that he found out that he was going to be a father of his own. But being a father scared the shit out of him. And the night that Robbie was born, he sat in the very restaurant that they're currently eating at, capping off a 3-day bender, trying to get the courage to walk across the street and into the hospital and welcome Robbie into the world, but he never did it. He tells Miguel, I failed my son the day he showed up in this world, and I've been failing him ever since. And failing his son is one of the most painful things in his life, but one of the happiest things he currently has is training Miguel. He tells Miguel that he'll always be by his side and he'll always have his best interest in heart. Miguel, though, then gets a text message from Aisha telling him that Miyagi-Do is planning on doing a demonstration at Valley Fest. Daniel felt like this would be a great opportunity to get some eyeballs on Miyagi-Do and show everybody what it's all about. But Cobra Kai feels like they should respond, and Daniel, unfortunately, has no idea about this. So they start going through the demonstration, and everything's going pretty well. And then it gets to the big finale, where Daniel is planning on breaking the ice blocks, just like he did years ago with Mr. Miyagi. But right before he can do that, Cobra Kai swoops in, stealing all the shine, and putting on a badass demonstration that's capped off by Johnny breaking cinder blocks that are on fire. And Miyagi-Do is left to just sit there, watch it all go down, and then walk away with their tail between their legs. After what happened at Valley Fest, Robbie and Sam are getting together to train, and Robbie says, you know what the problem with Miyagi-Do is? It's all about defense. You never see our offense. And she says, well, what do you want us to do? Go to the mall and pick a fight and record us defending ourselves? And Robbie says it's not the worst idea, but Sam thinks it's a terrible idea. Sam then goes and finds her dad working on Mr. Miyagi's old car, and her dad has realized that he needs to go for a more personalized touch to get people through the door. He then tells Sam to grab Robbie because they're going to take a drive to their beach club. Daniel has an idea to preach to the parents, not the kids. He's banking on parents doing whatever it takes to protect their kids and forcing their kids to learn karate. And this is a long shot, but Daniel's exhausted every other avenue to promote Miyagi-Do, so why not try this one? When they arrive at the country club, Robbie recognizes it because he worked there, and it did not end well. So he's a little hesitant to go in, even though he's going in as a guest. But him and Sam are going to chill by the pool while Daniel goes and tries to drum up some business with the parents. Now, over with Cobra Kai, Kreese is telling a bunch of the kids about his war stories. The issue is, he's messing up, and Miguel notices it. He gets countries completely confused. And he tries to play it off like, well, when you've been in the sand as long as I have, that's bound to happen, but Miguel finds the behavior odd. And training is starting a bit late because Johnny is in the back arguing with the landlord. The landlord wants to raise the rent yet again on Johnny because he has more students. But Johnny tells the guy basically to piss off. He's not going to pay the guy more rent just because he has more students. Johnny then starts class and notices that there's a few new people in the room. One of them is the guy from the hardware store that sold him the mirror glass. He asks all the new people, which one of you guys has the balls to take on the champ? And then all the way in the back, a girl named Tori raises her hand. She tells the room that she saw their demonstration at Valley Fest, but wonders if they can actually fight. And Miguel is tasked with showing her. The two get into it, and she's no joke. I mean, she's got serious skills. And her and Miguel continue to go back and forth, with nobody really winning, but each one surprising the other. After class, Aisha runs into her at the mini-mart, and Aisha's stressing because her mom wants her to come to the beach club, but she doesn't want to see Sam. She's still pissed off at her. And she asks Tori if she wants to go, just so it won't be as awkward. Maybe she has a friend there. Now, two guys that won't be going to the beach club are Miguel and Eli. Eli is outside FaceTiming with Dimitri, and Dimitri had heeded Eli's advice. He headed to the dojo to rejoin, although he did so with a list of demands. But he didn't give the list of demands to Johnny, he gave him to Kreese. And then he started nitpicking Kreese's tattoo. And that's when Kreese beat the shit out of him. Now, Eli thinks that Dimitri should just suck it up because he walked into a karate dojo, that's what happens. But this is even more strange behavior from Kreese that Miguel just can't ignore, so he brings it to Johnny, telling Johnny that he's a little worried about the behavior from Mr. Kreese. Johnny tells him that he and Kreese go way back, and the guy has his issues, but everybody deserves a second chance. But that doesn't mean that Johnny isn't going to look into it, and he overhears Kreese on the phone arguing with somebody. He asks him if everything's okay, and he says that he's at the Sheraton, and he's pretty sure one of the housekeepers stole his watch. Kreese then leaves, saying, I'll see you in the morning, but Johnny decides to follow him. And luckily for Johnny, his car is very inconspicuous. I mean, it's only a Dodge Charger with a yellow racing stripe that has the Cobra Kai logo all over it. And he ends up following Kreese to a homeless shelter. He asks Kreese if any of it was true, or was everything he said a lie? And Kreese tells him, well, you knew me when I was on top. It's kind of hard to let that go. Things got pretty rough for Kreese after he lost the dojo. He tried to re-enlist in the army, but he couldn't pass the psych eval. He kind of just sputtered through life until he got old. And for the last 10 years, he's been living in homeless shelters. But when he heard about what Johnny did in the All Valley, he figured that might be his second chance. He's kind of giving Johnny a little bit of a sob story, and Johnny tells him that sounds a lot like defeat, but I was taught that defeat does not exist in this dojo. If you want a chance to redeem yourself, you've got it, but you have to do things my way. And Kreese, with no other real option, accepts the offer. Now, back over with the beach club, Daniel is schmoozing the parents, and he's doing a really good job of it, describing why they really should get their kids interested in karate, specifically Miyagi-Do. But then Aisha's mom shows up, and she tells the table how much karate has done for Aisha, giving her confidence. And they ask Daniel, is Aisha one of your students? And her mom cuts in and says, no, she goes to Cobra Kai. And basically gives Cobra Kai a 2-minute commercial that has all of the parents enamored with it. I mean, there's no real shot for Daniel to redeem this one. It seems like if these people are going to get their kids involved in karate, it's going to be at the Cobra Kai dojo and not Miyagi-Do. So Daniel seemingly just takes the L and decides to walk on the beach. His daughter, meanwhile, is getting some sun when she notices Aisha show up with Tori. And she's still pissed at Aisha for ruining their performance, but Robbie convinces her to go talk to her and make up. And they talk it out with Aisha not being cool with the fact that, in her opinion, Daniel made a commercial going at Cobra Kai, and I just laid out the problems that Sam had with Aisha, but they realize it's pretty stupid to spend the entire summer fighting about karate. Aisha then says, man, it must really suck to sit there the entire summer training with Abs, aka Robbie, but Sam reassures her we're just friends. And Aisha says, either way, I'm not going to tell Miguel. And as Sam and Aisha continue to chat, when Tori then shows up with a bottle of vodka that she poached from the bar, Sam tells her, you really should put that back, you're going to get in trouble. And then Aisha awkwardly introduces the two. So after exchanging somewhat pleasantries, Tori tells her, no one's going to miss a bottle of vodka. I could probably swipe half the silverware in this place and no one would notice. But Sam tells her, you really shouldn't steal anything. And Tori says, what are you, a nun? She then tells Aisha, come on, let's go. Let's have a drink. Let's have some fun. And the two head off. Now, while this is going on, Robbie gets approached by the manager of the beach club, telling him, you know what I told you. If you ever come here again, I'm going to call the police. And he tries to call security to get him kicked out, but Amanda shows up and says, what's going on here? The manager tells her, we're going to get this delinquent out of here, but she tells the manager he's our guest, he's staying. Amanda then asks Robbie, though, what was all that about? And he does say, before I met you guys, I was a different person. I worked here and me and my friends got in some trouble. We didn't hurt anybody, but what the manager said is correct. I probably should get going. Amanda reassures him, though, that everybody deserves a second chance. It's what we do next that counts. So Robbie's staying put at that beach club. But right as the family's about to leave, Amanda notices that she doesn't have her wallet with her, and Sam is pretty certain she knows who took it. So she goes and hunts down Tori along with Aisha and says, hey, my mom's missing her wallet. Why don't you just give it to me before I call security? And Tori is taking this as an insult. She can't believe that she's being approached after telling her that she could steal all the silverware and the fact that she stole a bottle of vodka. I mean, it's not that far-fetched of an accusal. Tori starts to walk away, but Sam grabs her bag and Tori pushes her onto the food table with food going all over Sam. Now, Tori walks off, but Aisha does come over and say, are you okay? And Sam, who's covered in food, says, hey, real nice friend you've got. And instead of sticking up for her lifelong friend, Aisha says, well, you shouldn't have accused her, and walks off. But while that mini fight was going down, Robbie thinks he has a pretty good idea of where the wallet is. He heads down to the beach, and sure enough, he finds that along with a bunch of other wallets, because his old friends used to do this. You find out that stealing wallets is what got Robbie fired in the first place from that beach club. But he hears his friends coming, and he sets up a camera. He feels like this is a really good opportunity to show that defense can be great offense. He tells his friends, I found your stash, and you're going to give it all back. But they say, yeah, no, we're not. Did you not learn your lesson last time? Do you want to get your ass kicked? And Robbie squares up, ready to take him on. But then he gets hit in the back of the head with a paddle, because Robbie clearly forgot this was a three-man job. And the guy who worked at the beach club, who was stealing all those wallets, took Robbie out. They start beating up Robbie, even threatening to stab him, when Daniel, who was walking the beach, sees what was going on and ends up taking all of the bullies out using his own karate. When they get back to the dojo, Robbie does apologize, saying what he did was stupid, but does show Daniel that something good came out of it. It was the video that he made. A former All-Valley champ taking out 3 criminals, that video could go viral. It could be the advertising that they need to get a packed dojo. But Daniel doesn't want it. He says Miyagi-Do is about self-defense, not taking credit. It's time to just be patient. Let those who need us find us. And at that very moment, somebody has found them, and that person is Dimitri. So Miyagi-Do Karate officially has their 3rd student. And in episode 5, Dimitri starts with his training, but to be frank, he's a whiny bitch. He does stuff, but it's only after complaining about it and asking if there's an easier way. And it becomes obvious to Daniel that Dimitri doesn't want to be here, and he asks him, why are you here? And Dimitri tells him it's because his whole life he wasn't popular, but at least he had friends. And then when Cobra Kai swooped in, all of his friends became douchebags. And now he's getting threatened by his best friend, so he wants to show that he can defend himself. And it's a sad state, because Dimitri just lacks confidence. Now, over with Cobra Kai that day, they have a lesson, and the main message is, even if you're going to get hurt, sometimes going all in is worth the risk. And afterwards, Kreese compliments Johnny about the lesson, but says, are you even listening to your own words? Your kid is getting coached by your enemy. Go all in. So Johnny decides to go searching for Robbie, bringing a new skateboard to his apartment, but when he gets there, there's an eviction sign, and his ex-wife isn't answering the phone. So he goes to 3 separate LaRusso auto dealerships looking for Robbie because he knows he works there, when he meets Anish. And Anish is a douchebag to him, not answering the question of where is Robbie, to the point where Johnny jacks him up against a car in the dealership and demands to know where his son is, and that's when Anish reveals, I'm not sure, but he did move in with the LaRussos. And when Johnny hears that, he goes on a bender, arriving back in his apartment, drunk off his ass, where he runs into Carmen, who's doing laundry, and Carmen feels bad for him, so she brings him into their apartment to sober up. And shortly after, he fills her in on why he went down this bender, the whole backstory with Daniel, and how the fact that Daniel LaRusso just took his kid in makes Johnny want to get vengeance on him. But she tells him that's not going to make you feel better. Trust me, I know, from my ex-husband. The only way to end a rivalry is to rise above it. Be the bigger person. Now, Johnny wanted to know where Robbie was, but Robbie headed to the mall with Sam and Dimitri to grab some food. But shortly after the group sits down, Dimitri realizes that the comic book store has released the new comic of one of his favorite series, so he runs off to grab it. And while skimming through it, he's approached by Eli and a couple of the newbies from Cobra Kai, because Dimitri wrote a scathing review on Yelp, and Eli wants him to take it down. Dimitri tells him, though, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to risk my journalistic integrity on Yelp, but Eli pushes him. And Dimitri tells him, I know who you actually are, Eli. I'm not going to be intimidated by you. But then he turns around and there are two other guys behind him. And now it just looks like it's going to be gang warfare. So it's time to use that training that he's had, even though he is not ready. He tells Eli that Eli isn't the only one who knows karate. He's been learning Miyagi-Do, and he gets in a fighting stance, but he gets taken down pretty easily. And when that happens, he just runs off, running through the mall to try to get away from Cobra Kai. And it's not like all of the people that are chasing Dimitri are down with this. The one kid turns to Eli and says, yo, I think he learned his lesson. We don't need to do this. But Eli just bullies him up and says, shut up and go after him. And they end up catching up to Dimitri at the food court, where Dimitri cannot find Sam or Robbie. And as the Cobra Kai members converge on poor Dimitri, that's when Robbie and Sam swoop in, protecting him. Now, it's 5 on about 2.5, really, because of Dimitri, who poses no threat. And Eli feels pretty good about this, but Miyagi-Do wins out. Both Sam and Robbie's practice with that choreographed dance fighting thing ends up paying off big time. They fight off the Cobra Kai members, including an epic roundhouse kick from Robbie into Eli's face that knocks him out cold. And when they get back to Miyagi-Do, Robbie and Sam are pumped. They're reliving the moment, excited that their hard work paid off. And Daniel's excited too, although he is concerned that they're okay. But after finding out they're okay, he's proud of them for defending each other. And that's when he looks over in the corner and there is Dimitri, sitting by himself, feeling very insecure because he could do nothing. And when Daniel goes to talk to him, trying to make him feel better, Dimitri compares himself to Samuel Tarly, where Robbie and Sam are Jon Snow and Daenerys. But to his surprise, Daniel watches Game of Thrones, and he tells him if there's anything to take from that message, it's that anybody can do anything, because Samuel Tarly killed a White Walker. Never forget that. He then starts going over some defense moves with Dimitri, making it a little bit more easy to remember. Now, on the flip side of that battle, you have Eli, who got his ass beat, and the 180 turn of Eli has been insane. I mean, this kid went from crying to his mom about the kids making fun of him, saying he never got a girlfriend, to now becoming the biggest bully in Cobra Kai. And having a girlfriend, but not for long. Because when Moon finds out of what he did, she's no longer interested in dating him, telling him, I like your mohawk, I like your muscles, but I'm not going to date a bully. And he does not take that well at all, storming back into Cobra Kai and taking his rage out on a heavy bag. But that's when Kreese walks in and can tell he was in a fight. And Eli fills him in that they lost to a bunch of kids from Miyagi-Do, but Kreese tells him the fight isn't over until you say it is. So Eli rounds up some other members from Cobra Kai, they grab some spray paint, and they head to Miyagi-Do, and they completely trash it. And when Sam, Robbie, and Daniel wake up in the next morning, they find a wrecked Miyagi-Do. And it's pretty bad, but it gets worse when Daniel realizes that they even took Mr. Miyagi's Medal of Honor. And Daniel gets really emotional about that. They also spray painted Mr. Miyagi's car that says Cobra Kai never die. And that is a final straw for Daniel, who gets in the car, drives over to Cobra Kai, and confronts Johnny. And Johnny says, I have no idea what you're talking about, because he really doesn't. But Daniel, who's almost brought to tears about the fact that they stole Mr. Miyagi's Medal of Honor, tells him, just because you steal a Medal of Honor doesn't mean you actually earned it. They then look like they're about to square off and fight, and Daniel tells him, well, you know I'm not going to throw the first punch. What are you going to do? But Johnny remembers the message from Carmen. Rise above it, be the bigger man, and he tells him, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to be the bigger man. Daniel then proclaims to the entire dojo that it's not too late. You don't have to learn like this. Miyagi-Do is welcome to everybody. And then he leaves. And behind him is about half of the dojo leaving with him, including the kid in the mall who told him, hey, Eli, we don't need to do this. And he tells his friends, I didn't really like it here in the first place. Now, just because Eli's relationship ended doesn't mean it's all been bad. Miguel took the advice of going all in, and he's trying to win Sam back with a graphic. He needs a female's perspective, so he shows Tori, not realizing that she's been hitting on him this entire time. And when Tori sees that it's Sam, Tori's advice is to delete it because he seems desperate, and girls aren't into desperate guys. So, act like you're over her, then she'll come back, but in the meantime, let's have some fun. And that fun includes making out with Tori under the stars and trying to get Miguel to forget about Sam entirely. And over with Sam, after kicking the crap out of some Cobra Kai goons, she's making s'mores with Robbie that night when they get really close to hooking up, but Robbie pulls away, saying, there's nothing against you, it's just I got a really good thing going here with your dad, and I don't want to screw it up. And I don't think hooking up with you would be screwing it up, but I just don't want to take that chance. So, love is in the air for everybody except Eli. In episode 6, they need to fix Miyagi-Do. Daniel, Dimitri, Sam, and Robbie start going back to work, cleaning up the mess that Cobra Kai left. And at one point, Robbie does try to address the elephant in the room, but Sam shoots him down, saying, we didn't do anything, so there's nothing to talk about. It is kind of awkward, though. While they're cleaning up Miyagi-Do, the kids from Cobra Kai that left Cobra Kai show up at Miyagi-Do asking if this is the right place. But Robbie's looking for a fight, because he recognizes the one kid from beating up Dimitri. Daniel tries to stop him, but Robbie says that's one of the guys who was beating on Dimitri. He probably helped trash the dojo too, but Chris, the kid who left, says, hey, we didn't have anything to do with that, and then addresses Dimitri apologizing for what he did. But Dimitri does not accept the apology. He doesn't want to let these kids in Miyagi-Do, and he's not the only one. Robbie's hesitant to do so as well. But Daniel is willing to forgive and forget and says to him, we're happy to have you, and everybody starts going to work. Daniel gives all the kids individual tasks when Amanda calls asking if he's going to make the sales meeting. But Daniel says, I can't. We just got a bunch of new recruits, and I don't want to leave Miyagi-Do, so just cover it. But this is the second sales meeting in a row he's missed, and Amanda is concerned. Especially when Daniel says, well, something important just came up, I gotta go. And Amanda finds that kind of ironic since he thinks that a free dojo is more important than his business. But the important thing is the fact that Dimitri and Chris are going at it. Dimitri insulting Chris for just simple accidents. And the fact is, Dimitri is still pissed off at Chris for trying to rough him up in the mall. So Daniel decides to have them work together to lift a stone that Dimitri, Sam, and Robbie were having trouble lifting earlier in the day. This way, they're going to have to use teamwork to pick it back up. But Dimitri and Chris are having a tough time doing it, and Dimitri continues to insult Chris, so finally he pushes him. But when Chris pushes him, Sam and Robbie step in, thinking that he's getting bullied again, trying to come to his defense, when in reality it was Dimitri who was being the douchebag. So when this mini skirmish breaks out, Daniel runs out saying, what's going on? You guys are on the same team now. And Robbie says, no. Once Cobra Kai, always Cobra Kai. But Daniel says, that's not true. I know that's not true because I was once Cobra Kai. He brings all the kids in the dojo and explains that he wanted to continue fighting after the All Valley, but Mr. Miyagi didn't want him to, so he joined Cobra Kai. And it did make him feel tougher, but he also noticed that he was getting angrier, and he didn't like that side of him. So it doesn't matter who anybody was before they stepped into this dojo, because today, right now, we're all Miyagi-Do. And after that impassioned speech, Chris and Dimitri go out, work together, and are able to actually lift the stone up. And then the two have the most awkward high-five pound thing. It's just weird. But they'll work on that chemistry, I'm sure. But Daniel has done it. He seems to have a full dojo and been able to successfully integrate former Cobra Kai members with Miyagi-Do into one. Now, over with Cobra Kai, Johnny's trying to get some answers as to what went down in Miyagi-Do. He's having the kids do up-downs until somebody says who did it. He tells all the kids, we don't do that here. But these kids are winded, and they're promising Johnny that they don't know who did it. Johnny, though, then has to step away because he gets a phone call. And he recognizes the voice on the other end, but he finds out that one of his friends is doing really poorly in hospice. So he heads out, leaving the dojo in Kreese's hands. And Kreese gives the kids a 2-minute break where Eli does walk up to him and says, I think I should tell Sensei Lawrence what happened, but Kreese tells him, say nothing, I'll handle it. And he continues to work the kids to death. And because of the frustration, there's a little bit of infighting. So Kreese says, you know what, I'll tell you who did it. It was Hawk. And Eli's face looks guilty. But then Kreese says, and it was Miguel, and it was Robertson. And he lists everybody in Cobra Kai, saying that if one of them does something, they all do something. He then tells all the kids to get in the main dojo because they're about to start their real training. He squares off Tori and one of the new kids, and Tori dismantles the kid pretty quickly. She gets awarded the point. But while the kid's down, Kreese says, hit him again. And Tori's kind of surprised about this message. She's reluctant to do so, so Kreese says, do you have a problem with that? A fight isn't over until your enemy is finished. Show your enemy no mercy. So Tori nods, and she's about to clock this kid when Miguel speaks up saying, this isn't what Sensei Lawrence has been teaching us. There's no honor in being merciless. Tori won. She got the point. And Kreese slowly makes his way over to Miguel saying, well, Sensei Lawrence is right in a way. I mean, in a tournament, the fight stops when you get a point. But in real life, it's not about scoring points. It's about being a winner or a loser. And there are no losers in this dojo. After class that day, Miguel's getting some extra work in when Tori comes into the room and has him hold pads for her. Miguel asks her, don't you think that some of what Sensei Kreese is teaching us is wrong? But Tori doesn't. She tells him a story about when her and her brother were growing up and the hardships they faced. And the message of it is, Life shows you no mercy, so why should they? Before the next class, Miguel does go in beforehand and tell Kreese that he's sorry for speaking up. He shouldn't have done that. But Kreese doesn't seem mad. He tells him, you have allegiance to Sensei Lawrence, and allegiance is nothing to apologize for. So they seem to be on a good page. Now, over with Johnny, that phone call that he got was from hospice for Tommy, one of his best friends growing up from Cobra Kai. And Tommy is in rough shape. Bobby, his old friend from Cobra Kai, is the one who gave him a phone call. And they go in to see Tommy, who's thrilled to see Johnny. Shortly after, though, Jimmy shows up. And they're all saying hi to Tommy, but they have to leave when the nurse comes in. And they've conspired to get Tommy out of there because they can't let him wither away in a nursing home. And Johnny's big fear is that Tommy's going to be too weak to even get up. But when they walk back in, Tommy's already ripped off all of the heart rate monitors, and he tells them, let's get the hell out of here. They all rent motorcycles and head off to have one killer weekend again, just like the old days. They end up getting to a bar, and they're talking about life and what they've all been up to, and Johnny tells them that he's opened up a dojo, and he's called it Cobra Kai. And Cobra Kai isn't the only thing that's back, so is John Kreese. And his buddies aren't thrilled to hear this. They tell Johnny all that bullshit that we dealt with from Kreese, that no mercy crap, and hell, you dealt with it the worst. I mean, don't you remember what he did to you? But Johnny says, yeah, I remember, but people can change. I'm trying to change Cobra Kai. I'm trying to change the image. But even his buddies don't believe it, because John Kreese always has something going on. Tommy, then to break up this awkward conversation, says, hey, does anybody want to go play pool? And Johnny says, yeah, I will. But when they go over to the pool tables, there's some jerk getting way too handsy with a female, just being an overall douchebag. And he tries to act tough with Johnny while insulting Tommy at the same time. And when the guy puts his hand on Johnny, game on. All of the former Cobra Kai members go in on these goons, bringing back their karate and beating the hell out of all of them. That night, they go camping, and Tommy reveals to Johnny that he was actually always in love with Allie the whole time, but Johnny struck first. And that is why Tommy joined Cobra Kai. He wanted to have the balls that Johnny did when he asked Allie out. Johnny does reveal that he doesn't think he ever got over Allie. He tells Tommy, right now all I want to do is make sure my students don't make the same mistakes we did. I don't want these kids to look back at their life full of regret. And Tommy looks at him and says, you'll do it, Johnny, because you're the champ. And that is the last thing that Tommy ever tells Johnny, because the next morning, Tommy passed away in his sleep and the group finds him. In episode 7, Johnny returns after burying his friend, heads into his office to find that Kreese has organized everything, and even managed to put up a picture of himself, making himself really feel at home. And Johnny's not too thrilled about it, but he kind of just puts it to the side, walks out, and tells the kids to put their gis on because they're going to start the lesson. But the kids are all confused because Kreese told them that they were planning on going to the woods that day, a place called Coyote Creek, to do a special secret training thing. And when Johnny finds out it's Coyote Creek, he tells Kreese, I don't think they're ready for that. But once the kids hear that, they start telling Johnny that they are ready. And Johnny's feeling the peer pressure, so he agrees. Cobra Kai heads to Coyote Creek, and everybody is divvied up into teams, red versus black. They're all wearing headbands with their team's color on it, and the whole goal is to grab the other person's headband. And the team to grab all the headbands is going to win. But Kreese is a little overdramatic, telling the kids that the headband is their life and there are no rules to this. Get a headband at all costs. Johnny, however, reminds the kids, this is simply a training mission, that's it. Now, Miguel and Tori are on the same team, and they're walking through the woods together when they come across one of the guys from the other team. And they toy with this poor guy. But after Tori gets his headband, Miguel ends up, quote-unquote, finishing him. And Johnny sees this from afar, and he is not a fan. Now, Eli, meanwhile, is on the other team. And Miguel sees him grab a headband, but then he also sees Eli start bragging about the fact that he has 5, quote, kills, and I guess that's why he has a Medal of Honor, alerting Miguel to the fact that it was Eli who trashed Miyagi-Do. And it ends up coming down to Miguel versus Eli. Eli walks up to him saying, all right, finally a worthy opponent. But to his surprise, Miguel isn't very playful, pissed off about the fact that Eli is the one who trashed Miyagi-Do. But Eli tells him, well, they're the enemy. I had to put them in their place. And Miguel can't believe what he's hearing, telling Eli, they're not the enemy. That's stupid. Now, Eli thinks this is all about Sam, but it's not. And he tells Miguel, well, if you want the Medal of Honor so bad, come and take it. And that's exactly what Miguel does. And when Miguel claims victory, Kreese yells, finish him. So Miguel does that. But Johnny walks up to him afterwards and says, what the hell was that? I didn't teach you that. Is that really how you want to live your life? And then he walks away disgusted. So now Johnny has an issue with Kreese. And when they get back to the dojo, Johnny asks Kreese, what have you been filling my kids' heads with? And Kreese explains that it's the same stuff that he taught Johnny back in the day. But Johnny tells him that didn't work then and it doesn't work now. Cobra Kai is always going to be badass, but there's a huge difference between no mercy and no honor. Kreese starts trying to justify himself, but at the same time rile Johnny up. And it gets to the point where Johnny just cuts him off and says, you know what? This isn't working out. I thought it would, but it's not. And he kicks Kreese out of the dojo, forcing him to leave, and Kreese reluctantly does. Now, over with Miyagi-Do, Daniel has gotten an early start to the day, but he gets a phone call from Amanda, who once again woke up in a bed that was empty. He tells her that he got an early start to the day and tried to get an early start in the lesson, but she reminds him that they have a meeting that day with Anush. He reassures Amanda that he's going to be there and quickly gets off the phone because he hears something outside. And to his surprise, it's not anybody from Miyagi-Do, it's actually Kreese. Now, it's worth mentioning that this interaction did happen before Kreese's trip to Coyote Creek and before Kreese got kicked out of Cobra Kai. But the visit to Miyagi-Do was really a warning shot from Kreese to Daniel that what happened back then isn't going to happen again, and all of his kids are going to be ready, and this is war, and the same douchebag rhetoric from Kreese. It's really just a tactic to try to intimidate Daniel. Now, while this is going on, Sam had linked back up with Moon. And Sam wants Moon to help her pick out an outfit, but Moon can't figure out why because it's just workout clothes. And then she figures out, oh my God, you have a crush, and it's got to be Robbie. And Sam kind of admits to having a crush on him, but also tells her that nothing's happened yet. So with that information, Moon does help her pick out an outfit, but it's extremely hot that day. And none of the kids really want to train because it's so hot. They're all whining. And the training method that day is one person standing in a circle, everybody has a number, Daniel yells at the number, that person goes in to attack the person in the center of the circle. But they're all struggling with it, so Daniel decides to flip the script and put them in a freezer. He tells them that the muscles twitching from the cold and the fact that you can see your opponent's breath, that'll all help you. But as he's in the middle of this lesson, he gets a phone call from Anush, and he sends the phone call straight to voicemail. And Anush is sitting there with Amanda wondering where Daniel is, visibly annoyed. And because his phone call went straight to voicemail, he figures that Daniel isn't coming and he walks out. And Amanda frantically calls Daniel, but he's not answering because he's too busy with this lesson. Now, the good thing about the lesson is he was able to help Dimitri defend himself. The bad thing about the lesson is once he's done with it, he sees a bunch of missed calls from Amanda, and he knows that he screwed up. So he frantically heads to the dealership to make up with Anush, but he finds that Anush is gone. And Amanda tells him, yeah, he left. And Daniel thinks that he just left for the day, but she explains, no, Daniel, he left. He got a better offer from Tom Cole, and he was willing to let you match it, but you blew him off once again. You've been an absentee owner, neglecting this place while you've been off at karate camp. And Amanda isn't wrong, and Amanda's very sick of it. Well, back at the house, with Sam's parents both at the dealership arguing about Daniel's ownership strategy, Sam and Robbie finally hook up. And shortly after that happens, there's a knock at the door, and Robbie yells for Sam to get it, but she's upstairs, so Robbie answers the door, and to his surprise, it's Miguel. Miguel is returning the Medal of Honor, and explains to Robbie that he wasn't the one who trashed Miyagi-Do, he was just returning the Medal of Honor. They're not all douchebags. But when Sam comes downstairs after Robbie closed the door and asks who was at the door, instead of telling her the truth, Robbie says, oh, it was nobody. They just had the wrong house, and puts the Medal of Honor in his pocket. In episode 8, Daniel is in the doghouse, and he's forced to sleep on the couch. A secret that he's trying to keep from his mom, who has shown up to help out around the house, but it's hard to lie to your mom. She knows something's up. And the arrival of Daniel's mom has really put a wrench into the makeout sessions of Robbie and Sam, who are forced to make one real training people. They do, however, have to go outside when they hear a commotion, and it's because Dimitri has, quote-unquote, found the Medal of Honor. And Robbie just plays it off like, yeah, it must have just been around a bunch of rocks. And Daniel was unaware of all of this because that day he headed into the dealership to try to make good with Amanda, buying her a bunch of sushi. But Amanda sees right through it and tells him to give the sushi to her customers. And since that peace offering fell flat on its face, he decides to bring the kids to the dealership and having the lesson there by getting all of Miyagi-Do to wax on and wax off the cars. And when Amanda sees this, she says, okay, that's cute, but 10 more minutes of this free labor. But Daniel cuts her off saying, no, this isn't a training session. This is me trying to help. This is me trying to say I'm sorry. But Amanda explains to Daniel that she knows that none of this is permanent. You can't put a Band-Aid on an open head wound. And Daniel can't believe that she's actually comparing their marriage to an open head wound. And that's when Daniel really realizes that he has his work cut out for him. That night, Daniel just wants to remember the good times, so he starts flipping through a scrapbook, and his mom shows up. And they have a conversation about relationships and Daniel's father a little bit. But in that scrapbook, there's one photo that really sticks out to Daniel, and it's the opening of LaRusso Auto Group. And in that photo, Amanda is very pregnant. But that night, they snuck away to sit in a car and have some sparkling cider and just talk about the future, map everything out. So with that photo, Daniel now has a plan to get his wife back. He heads to the dealership dressed just like he did that night, but instead of sparkling cider, he's got actual champagne. And he brings Amanda into one of their cars, and she has to give it to him, telling him that it's a pretty good plan doing this whole trip down memory lane. But Daniel says, nah, screw the dealership. What I remember the most about that night was planning out our future together. He then goes on to apologize, but admits that opening up the dojo made him realize how much he missed Mr. Miyagi, but also missed karate. The two do end up kissing in the backseat. Super adorable stuff. Now, over with Cobra Kai, Johnny has realized that he sort of has a crush on Carmen. But when he goes over to their apartment to ask her out, she's not there. She's actually arriving in the apartment with her boyfriend, and it makes for a super awkward interaction with Johnny. He then needs to regroup because he's got a class that day, and he heads there and tells the kids that Kreese is out. And the words on the wall, strike first, strike fast, no mercy, they just make you out to be an asshole. Because in life, there's a lot of gray area. And in those gray areas, that's where Johnny Lawrence's Cobra Kai is going to show mercy. He then has the group square up and practice their headbutts, but Miguel goes to check on him, knowing that Johnny and Kreese were pretty close. But Johnny tells him, don't worry about me, worry about little girlfriend out there. And this is the first indication that Johnny's known about Miguel and Tori the entire time. Miguel then tries to turn the attention to Johnny's love life, but Johnny turns the attention to Miguel's mom's love life. And Miguel explains that he likes this new guy, and she's had really bad luck with guys in the past. She met this guy on a dating app and tells Johnny that one of those could work for him too. And Miguel offers to set it all up. And Miguel does that, but none of these dates are going well. And while sitting at the bar, he ends up messaging Allie via Facebook, but before he hits send, and it doesn't even look like he's going to, a woman bumps into him. And when that happens, his thumb accidentally hits send, the message goes out, but this woman was practicing a tactic that Johnny had talked about earlier. The old, you bump into someone at a bar and then apologize by offering to buy him a drink. And she does that, and the two hit it off. They're having a nice night. But then Johnny overhears somebody to the side and realizes that it's Carmen's boyfriend. And he's telling his buddy how she's kind of pathetic because she lives in an apartment with her mom. And Johnny's trying to ignore it, but the more the night goes on, the more he can't ignore this guy. Because at this point, he's making out with some random girl. So when the guy goes to go to the bathroom, he's forced to go in the alley because the bathroom at the bar is broken. And Johnny follows him out there, leaving the girl at the bar, and telling this guy in the alley, you're going to leave Carmen alone. And the guy tries to act tough with Johnny, but ends up getting his ass kicked, although Johnny does show mercy. And the guy does end up leaving Carmen alone. A couple days later, Johnny sees Carmen all dolled up and asks how she's doing, and she says, I guess I got stood up on my date. And Johnny feels like this is a good opportunity, slides in and says, you should never be ghosted. No one should ignore you. And he asks Carmen out on a date, and she accepts. Now, that's not the only date, because Miguel has been looking for an opportunity to go out with Tori for a while. But the best they can come up with is going to Tori's work, where she works at a roller rink, and they're having 80s night. So Miguel's going to head there, borrowing Johnny's jacket that makes him look like Michael Jackson, and he just plans to wait for Tori to get off. But unbeknownst to them, Robbie and Sam are headed to the exact same place, needing to get away from Sam's house because her grandmother is there and they just can't get any privacy. And they both are dressed in like a Pretty in Pink setup, although Robbie really looks like Don Johnson. But as soon as they get in there, she flags down one of the waitresses to get a menu, and when the girl turns around, she realizes, crap, it's Tori. And Tori is extremely rude to her. The awkwardness and insults are broken up when Miguel shows up and sees that Tori is talking to Sam and tries to introduce them, only to realize that they already know each other and they have quite a history. But right before Tori skates off to go back to work, she makes out with Miguel right in front of Sam. Now, Sam is trying not to let this ruin her night, but Sam's skate breaks, and she goes to get it fixed, where she once again runs into Miguel. And this isn't an accidental bump-in. Miguel showed up to apologize to her, but the conversation ends up turning into, I can't believe you're going out with her, well, you showed up with him. And from afar, Tori is watching all of this go down, and jealousy is getting to her. So when Tori sees Robbie and Sam skating by with drinks, she ends up bumping into Sam really hard, where Sam ends up spilling her drink and falling all over the ground. And she doesn't exactly apologize, saying, sorry, princess. And Sam's had enough. She goes after her, tripping her. The problem is everybody saw what Sam did and no one saw what Tori did. And Robbie and Sam are kicked out of the roller rink, with Miguel in complete shock that Sam just did that, even though Tori started it all. In episode 9, Robbie and Sam have decided to go public with their relationship and tell the LaRussos. But when they go to walk in the living room and actually tell them, to Robbie's surprise, his mother is sitting there, crying. She tells Robbie that Cabo was a mistake, which he scoffs at, saying, yeah, I could have told you that. And then she reveals to Robbie that she has to leave again. And he gets his back up, saying, where are you going to go now? Las Vegas? Jamaica? But she says, no, Robbie, I have to go to rehab. And immediately, to Robbie's credit, his mood changes and he becomes very sympathetic to his mother. and also proud of her for realizing that she has a problem and she needs to fix it. Now, the LaRussos have been nice enough to let Robbie stay there, and they're going to continue to do that, but she does tell Robbie, you can stay with your father. Although Robbie has no interest in that whatsoever, she tells Robbie, I know you don't have the best relationship with him, but don't let my relationship with your dad ruin your possible relationship with your dad, because, believe it or not, he does actually care about you. Even after this talk, though, it's pretty set that Robbie's going to stay with the LaRussos. It's also pretty set that this is not a good time to tell the LaRussos about the relationship, so they put that to the side. And that night, Sam gets on FaceTime and is telling Moon about the incident that happened at the roller skating rink, but more so about the fact that she can't believe that Miguel is actually dating Tori. And Moon says, yeah, but what does it matter? I mean, you guys have both moved on. That's a good thing, right? Although it seems like Sam has definitely not moved on. The whole point of this conversation, though, is to invite Sam, along with the rest of Miyagi-Do, over to Moon's house for a party that she's going to have. And the party just happens to coincide with Daniel and Amanda's date night, so it actually ends up being perfect. Daniel has decided to take out Amanda, trying to show her a good time, going to a Mexican place and going out dancing. But when they show up at the restaurant is packed, and the only table they have is sitting next to Johnny Lawrence on his first date with Carmen. And Johnny and Daniel are not happy to see each other. But that doesn't stop Carmen and Amanda from being friendly. But both tables' conversations morph into a mini pissing contest about who has the bigger dojo. And finally, Amanda goes, really? Is this how it's going to be the whole night? So the women actually push the two tables together, forcing Johnny and Daniel to just talk this out, because both women realize that the two aren't that different, and it actually ends up working. When the women go to the bathroom, Daniel found out that Johnny really didn't know about Miyagi-Do being trashed. He also finds out that Johnny had no idea that Kreese came over and threatened him. And Johnny tells Daniel that Kreese is no more, he's gone, and he's trying to change Cobra Kai for the better. And after this mini clearing of the air, everybody has a really nice night. Now over with the kids, Miyagi-Do shows up to Moon's party, and to their surprise, Cobra Kai is there. And it leads to a very awkward staring contest between the two dojos. Moon quickly shows up, though, and welcomes Miyagi-Do into her house, but Sam tells her, I didn't know that Cobra Kai was going to be here. And Moon says, school's starting soon. Can we just squash this beef and go back to being friends again? And for a little bit it works, although the beef between Tori and Sam does not go away. Tori's playing this game where you balance one leg on a stool while drinking, and if somebody falls off, they lose. And Tori is demolishing the competition. And when she sees Sam walk outside, she challenges Sam, and Sam doesn't back down. The two start drinking against each other. And Sam ends up winning. Tori falls off the stool and loses, and she's in a bad mood. But this competition leaves Sam blitzed. And when she goes in the house, she continues to try to drink, but Robbie, looking out for her, says, hey, maybe you should cool it. Let me go get you some food. And she can't believe that Robbie is trying to be a babysitter instead of a boyfriend. Although Robbie's not the only one that noticed this, because so did Aisha. And she's also concerned about how much Sam is drinking. And when she approaches Sam about it, Sam says, you're just pissed off because I kicked your friend's ass. You can consider that payment for trashing Miyagi-Do. But Aisha tells her that she had nothing to do with that. Neither did Tori and neither did Miguel. I mean, hell, Miguel returned the Medal of Honor. And this is the first time that Sam is hearing this, not even believing it. But Aisha fills her in that Miguel went to her house, gave the Medal of Honor to Robbie, and then left it at that. He wanted to do the right thing. And this is a lot for Sam to think about, so she just heads outside. So the party continues on, and Eli, who is at the party, has got his eyes on his ex, Moon. But when he sees a new girl walk in, he turns to one of the guys from Cobra Kai, one of the newbies, and says, you want to know how you get a babe back? You make her think that you're over her. And he walks up to the girl and starts chatting her up, flirting with her, but then all of a sudden, Moon pops up out of nowhere, welcomes the girl, and then kisses her, because that girl is Moon's new girlfriend. And this is blowing Eli's mind. And he spends the entire night just staring at his ex-girlfriend making out with this chick. And Dimitri notices that his old friend is hurting, so he sits next to him and asks him if he saw the new Doctor Who trailer, but Eli tries some tough guy shit saying, I don't watch nerd shit anymore. Although the more that Dimitri talks about it, the more it becomes clear that Eli is still very much into Doctor Who. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I don't watch it, but, to each their own. Dimitri does, however, cross the line, though, when he tells Eli that he needs to get over Moon because she's clearly over him. And that kind of triggers Eli a little bit, so the point where he stands up and pours a beer on Dimitri's head. But for Dimitri, that's the last straw. He gets up in front of the whole school and is just torching Eli, telling all the kids that he wet the bed until he was about 15. Just really embarrassing stuff. I mean, just roasting this kid. Alerting the entire school to who Hawk really is. Now, two people who aren't witnessing this go down are Sam and Miguel. They're outside, and Miguel stepped out to go check on Sam to make sure that she's okay, but Sam gave him a lot of attitude, and Miguel started to walk away, and Sam said, hold on, wait. I heard what you did about the medal. That medal means a lot to my family. I do really appreciate it. I had no idea. She then kind of trips into him, and the two end up kissing. And since Tori's thing is to spy on her boyfriend from far away, she ends up seeing this. So she just leaves, pissed off. And it's a good thing, too, because with the roasting of Hawk/Eli going down, Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai were about to come to blows when the party gets broken up by cops. And all the kids are frantically running out of the house, including Robbie, who has gotten Sam, but Sam doesn't want to go back to her house. She doesn't want her parents to see her like that. So with nowhere else to turn, Robbie heads to his dad's place. And Johnny has just arrived back home from his first date with Carmen. In the season finale of season 2, the LaRussos wake up and their daughter is nowhere to be found, and they kind of go into panic mode because she's not answering her phone and neither is Robbie. Although lucky for the both of them, Aisha has messaged Sam to find out if she got home okay that night because she was drinking a lot, and the two see it because her computer is connected to her phone. They also utilize the Find My iPhone app and find out her exact location. And that location, unbeknownst to them, obviously, is Johnny Lawrence's place. So they head over there. But while they're on their way, Robbie has woken up and he thanks his dad for letting him crash there that night. Johnny tells Robbie, look, man, that's fine, but I'm going to have to tell LaRusso about this. I mean, it's his kid. And Robbie tells him don't, because if he sees her like this, it'll crush him. Let me take the fall. I'll tell them that I got really drunk and I told Sam to bring me here. And she stayed because she wanted to make sure I was okay. And that's all well and good, but when Daniel arrives and finds that the location is Johnny Lawrence's place, all the goodwill that happened the night before on their double date goes out the window. It doesn't help with the fact that when Daniel confronts him saying, is my daughter here? Johnny's first instinct is to tell him to calm down. Daniel ends up forcing his way into Johnny's apartment, and the two start squaring off like the old days, getting into a full-on fight. This ends up waking up Sam, who is sleeping in the next room, and that's when the fight stops because Daniel turns his attention to his daughter, asking if she's okay, and when Sam says yeah, he then wants to know, well, then why didn't you call or text or let us know where you're at? Robbie tries to come to Sam's defense, but when he does that, Daniel turns on Robbie, saying, I tried to give you a second chance, but you screwed this up. If you want to end up like him, meaning Johnny, go ahead. He then instructs Sam to get in the car, but right before he leaves, he mean mugs Johnny Lawrence like nobody's business. Both kids, though, need to put this behind them because they've got school the next day. And Robbie is enrolled at Sam and Miguel's school. Daniel drops Sam off, and Johnny does the same with Robbie, actually giving him a book bag with a bunch of stuff in it because he didn't really know what Robbie needed, but Robbie definitely appreciates it. But Johnny can tell that something is bothering Robbie, and Robbie reveals that he doesn't like the way he left things with the LaRussos. And he knows that Johnny doesn't want to hear it, but Daniel was really good to him. And it was Miyagi-Do karate that helped Robbie out a lot. In the middle of their conversation, though, Miguel ends up calling Johnny, and Johnny sends it straight to voicemail because he wants to hear Robbie out. And Robbie's whole message to his dad is that you and Daniel could probably learn something from each other. You're not that different. Robbie then hops out of the car and ends up linking up with Sam at her locker, joking around with her that he needs help finding a couple of classrooms, but Sam is still bothered about what happened the night before, feeling like an idiot. She apologizes to Robbie, but Robbie says, there's no need to apologize, this is my fault too. He does then reveal to her, though, that Miguel gave him the Medal of Honor. That had kind of been weighing on him a little bit. And the whole reason he did that was because he didn't want Miguel to earn any points with Sam. Their relationship was fresh, and he just felt insecure. And Sam is about to tell Robbie that her and Miguel kiss, but then the bell rings. All the kids go to homeroom, including Miguel, who sits next to Eli. And Miguel has had an issue because he hasn't heard from Tori since the night of the party. And he's starting to get really concerned because Aisha tells him that she also hasn't heard from Tori. Tori's just MIA. He ended up confiding in Eli that he kissed Sam, and Eli thinks it's awesome, but Miguel feels really bad about it, feeling like he just shouldn't have done that to Tori. But the conversation is broken up when this kid walks up to Eli and tells him that there's nothing to be ashamed of about wetting the bed till you're about 15, just because, kids haven't forgotten that little story that Dimitri told at the party. And this is all happening during the morning announcements that no one's really listening to, but everybody's ears perk up when Tori hops on, announcing to the whole school that Samantha LaRusso knows what she did, and now she's going to pay for it. So when classes adjourn, the whole school surrounds Sam and Tori, and it leaves Miguel and Robbie rushing to break things up. But there's no breaking up this fight. And when Miguel sees Robbie put his hands on Tori, Miguel comes to her aid, thinking that Robbie's trying to get in the way, and it's really just a big misunderstanding. But now you've got Sam and Tori, and on the other side, you've got Miguel and Robbie. And Eli, who's become such a meathead, is ready to throw down with anybody. So you've got both dojos going at it. I mean, just former friends beating up on each other. Total chaos in the hallways of the school. And the fight is moving to the main entrance of the school, to staircases, and teachers aren't breaking it up because they're not paid enough to do that. And because it's full-on chaos, Eli thinks that this is the perfect time to get revenge on Dimitri for telling that story at the party, and he goes after Dimitri, hunting him down. But when he finally catches up to Dimitri, Dimitri uses Miyagi-Do to kick the crap out of Eli. That, however, is on a totally different area of the school. They were by themselves, really. Because on the main staircase, Robbie and Miguel continue to fight, but each one is trying to get to their girlfriends, trying to break it up. Although anytime they get close, the other one grabs them and the two end up continuing to fight. And the fight between Tori and Sam is just continuing. Sam is winning, yelling at Tori, "Is that the only way you know how to fight is dirty?" And Tori looks at her, harnessing her in her Cobra Kai, telling her, "This isn't a tournament. There are no rules." And she puts this spiked bracelet around her fists and starts going after Sam, trying to legitimately hurt her. And she is able to. But Sam ends up using Miyagi-Do and winning that fight. However, most of the school is still focused on Robbie and Miguel. And Miguel has Robbie dead to rights. But he remembers what Johnny said about mercy, and even apologizing to Robbie, dropping his arm and saying, "I'm sorry." But Robbie does not accept that apology. Rage just envelops him, and he ends up getting up and kicking Miguel over the balcony. And Miguel ends up falling probably 3 flights and injuring his back. I mean, he is knocked out. And it is a serious injury that has the entire school stopped dead in their tracks. And right away, Robbie knows that he went too far. He knows he screwed up. I mean, Sam can't believe what he did. Tori has gone to Miguel's aid, and all of the parents are alerted. Johnny finds out and hears Carmen scream from getting the news. And he heads to the hospital with Carmen and her mom, and the doctor tells Carmen, "You've seen your fair share of these. You know the next 24 hours is critical." Johnny is really concerned and asks, is he going to pull through? And the doctor doesn't really reassure him, just saying, "We're doing everything we can." And Carmen is inconsolable, understandably so. Johnny apologizes to her, but she says, "Sorry. Before Miguel met you, he was a sweet boy. He avoided fights. Now look what you did. I never want to see you again." Johnny's just left to kill time walking the halls, and he ends up seeing Sam getting stitched up in another room as Daniel and Amanda try to calm her down because Sam feels like it's all her fault. Johnny then checks his phone, though, and sees that he has a voicemail from Miguel. It's from the phone call that he sent straight to voicemail when he was talking to Robbie in the car. And it's Miguel telling him that he's having girl issues, and Johnny's always been better at that sort of thing than Miguel, so he really needs to talk to him. The moment ends up bringing Johnny to tears because he doesn't know if that's going to be the last time he hears Miguel's voice. So Johnny ends up leaving the hospital, and when he gets in the elevator, right before the doors close, Daniel gets in the elevator. But this time, neither guy says a word. Neither guy is in the mood to fight. Johnny heads straight for the dojo, but when he gets there, to his surprise, it's unlocked. And he starts hearing these sounds coming from the back. And that's because all the way in the back of the dojo, Kreese is running Miyagi-Do. Hawk is there along with a bunch of his cronies, and Johnny demands to know what Kreese is doing there, but Kreese says, "I'm teaching my students. You let them down when they needed you the most, and somebody needed to remind them what it takes to win." Johnny tries to step towards Kreese, but all of the kids in Cobra Kai get in his way. They're putting all of the blame on what happened to Miguel on the fact that Johnny was teaching mercy. Johnny can't believe it and tells Kreese to get out, but Kreese tells him, "No, this is my dojo." Oh, yeah, I totally forgot to tell you. When you were out of town, I had a talk with the landlord, and it turns out he doesn't really like you either. And then there's a funny thing about handshake deals. They can be broken. I mean, after all, I founded Cobra Kai. It belongs to me. It always has, and it always will. I'll never let my students lose, even if it means that they have to find out the hard way. Johnny is fighting back tears after everything that happened that day, but also just finding out that the dojo was stolen from him. And he tells Kreese, "If you wanted Cobra Kai back so badly, you know what? It's yours." And then he leaves. He goes to the beach and is thinking about everything he went through with Miguel and ends up chucking his cell phone. But when he does, his cell phone pings because he got a friend request from Allie. And that is how Season 2 of Cobra Kai ends. Thank you so much for watching this recap and getting to this point. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Like this video if you liked it. Hit thumbs down if you thought it sucked. But if you know somebody that does need a recap of Cobra Kai, either Season 1 or 2, please consider sharing this on your social media platforms. And please, be nice in the comments section. I said this with the first one. I don't know karate. So when you're mean to me, I can't challenge you to a fight and then back up my words. I'm like Eli before he got the mohawk. It just makes me feel bad. So if you're going to write a negative comment, just write it somewhere else. But just know, I do really appreciate you guys watching this.